Hold on, let me do one. Do you a snap? Or
Just as long as you get a huge spike in audio.
so you can just see it.
And then you can sync it. And
yeah.
it makes it easier to be like, oh, because
sync the audio and the video. Like you rip the video from that.
Correct.
And then replace it with this.
Correct.
Because the quality is better and you can control it more.
Yeah.
Like if like I scream or something, you can go in and deafen it a little bit or like do magic.
Yeah, so editing process is magic. Really quick. And we're back, by the way.
Hello. Round number 2.
But yeah, like video for that, and then I take whatever audio that's picking up, delete that audio track, and then this is recording the audio from here. And so then if you match up the waveforms of the sound, then it's like, oh, this is actually the sound coming from the video all in one, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you started this podcast during COVID, before COVID?
Like right in COVID, in the middle of it.
Was it something you wanted to do before then? Or like COVID hit and you're like, man, I got way too much spare time. I need to do something or put myself out there or like develop myself a little bit or create a hobby?
Both. Yeah, all the above. Because, ever since I remember when I got my first pair of AirPods right here, right? I immediately was like, what do I do with these? I would listen to music and whatever, and I got bored at work with listening to music, and then I found podcasts. And I don't know how long podcasts been out right there, but I remember listening to it. Like I would listen to Kevin Hart on Joe Rogan. It was like one of the first podcasts I ever listened to. And like he was talking about like all the stuff kind of we've been talking about, like, how he's went through like trials and tribulations, like how he was bullied as a kid, how he learned to be funny, how he learned.
Kevin Hart specifically talked about this?
Was talking about this, like how he learned to.
He's a short king as well.
Yeah, how he learned to like. No.
Cheers.
Hey, cheers, bro. Yeah. But
earbuds and.
But I remember he was just talking about like how he took everything in his life and made it to where he is today. Like he came from like next to nothing, growing up in Philadelphia. Was basically told he would never do anything and blah blah blah. And I remember like, man, this is fucking badass. And I never listened to a podcast before, and I never heard Kevin Hart like that unless I heard his like comedy stuff.
But you'd only seen him as an actor or a comedian.
Yeah,
you never saw like this personal side.
Like being
of
vulnerable and being so surreal at the same time.
A human.
Like, yeah, there you go.
You humanized a person you looked up to.
Yeah, I was like, this is so cool. I don't know if I looked up to him, but I disrespected his art.
You knew he was a successful human being, and regardless of like looking up to him,
I knew he was funny. I knew what he was.
Acknowledging
cool.
success, right? Yeah.
And I was like, but man, I've never heard like anybody really just sit down and talk with somebody like that before.
Like, wow, that person's problems are
and I was like,
similar to my own, or like hell, like
you can relate.
It's relatable, and yeah.
And I remember just going like, what's the next one? What's the next one? And so then, like when COVID hit, I just remember having extra time on my hands. We were doing like we would like rotate work from home days and stuff. But I just remember like, well, I've told people before I always wanted to try a podcast because I thought it would be cool. Like especially how Rogan does it, which is like literally let's sit around, like depending on who he has on.
There is no topic, but there is a topic kind of a thing.
And then like if he has his buddies on, they'll just sit around, drink whiskey and then put up world news events
or whatever.
And then talk. But like if he has like a guy who's that Robert Malone who invented the vaccination or mRNA vaccinations. He's like, let's talk about that. And then like the whole thing was about that. But I was like, that's cool how he does that. And so I was like, well, I want to try it.
And it seems like, to give him a lot of credit, like he's obviously one of the most successful podcasters coming from like a TV history as well. Like he already knew how to talk to people, make them feel comfortable. And like he was in a way fated to be a great podcaster. Like he had all of the tools ready, just had to actualize it. But like, that's funny you say he like in a way kind of gave you inspiration for it because now we're doing almost a very similar thing. Like sure, you're not Joe Rogan. You're quite jacked.
Thanks, man.
I think about the same size actually. If you think about it, but like you're doing that in a way. And,
but it was, I don't want to interrupt you, but it was cool. Like, because I'd never, like, growing up, had these conversations, like, deep conversations, like, talking about, like, free will or talking about, do you believe in fate and stuff like that. It just made me start thinking, it's like, wow, that's, those conversations are kind of cool, rather than just, like, there's that nerdy stuff and, like, does anybody even want to listen to that? But I really got a lot out of, like, listening to him, like, there's more to life than just to think about one way of thinking. You can look at it another person's point of view just because of nature versus nurture, how they grew up or whatever. And, like, that, for whatever reason, never clicked with me all growing up. And I don't know if it was just because I just was not exposed to it. And just, growing up in, like, I'm kind of similar situation, divorced parents, but, middle-class family, never had to worry if we're going to eat tonight or whatever.
But still support a family. Like, you had the things.
The dinner time was not like, let's, talk about, do you believe what the war should be valid or not or whatever. Or
Right.
do you believe like, hey, you know, what's your, I don't know, like,
or the folks talking about something that's relevant and
Right,
you
like-
hearing it and like being exposed to it and maybe having a question or a thought and like them acknowledging you and engaging it and going into higher level thought and conversation.
Yeah, we never had those.
even at a younger age. I got a comment on that, and then I got a
Okay.
couple of questions for you.
Okay,
So
okay.
I'll go into the comment
But-
first.
But yeah, going back, that's why I started. Just because I was like, well, I want to try this. I want to at least, like, I like talking to people. I like hanging out with my friends, and I like, you know, trying to learn from somebody about something that I don't know about. And I was like, why not? Like, this is my time. Like, I'm here. I have plenty of extra time. Besides, like, I go to the gym. Like, I'm working from home, and like, why not? Let's try it.
That's like
That was like the worst thing. It was like, let's try to make, like, you know, we were talking about earlier, like the first day of going into the gym, and then
it's the hardest, right?
yeah, and like this, like I remember, like I recorded the first episode, and like I was ready to upload it and all that. Yeah, I might get a swig, and then, but like I remember, like when you finally hit like upload or submit or whatever it is, and you're just like, do I want to fucking do this?
Putting yourself out
Yeah,
there.
do I want
it
to
made
release
you,
this?
Like, what if it sucks?
Yeah, that's
What if
like-
I get hate comments? What if,
Dude,
like,
that was going in so much.
no
of my
one
head.
views it? That's almost worse than like hate comments. Like there's so many what ifs or like hypotheticals or barriers that we put in our own brain. They're not actually there. They're only things that we create and
and
manifest.
that's exactly what I was doing.
Did you? So I guess that actually was one of my first questions, and we didn't plan on talking about the history of your podcast and like how you got started with it, but I actually am kind of interested in
But
it.
that's the
like,
beauty of this podcast, or like talking in the scenario with friends. Like I love, like, you know, if you and I were having dinner somewhere right now, doing the same thing, having a few drinks and just talking, I would hope it'd be almost the exact same way.
I don't think it would be much. I might like
Like
say a couple of names
Yeah,
or things like a
of
little
course.
differently or like a place differently
Yeah.
or maybe tell a little bit more personal of a story. or
Right.
go maybe R-rated for a couple of things. I'm trying to keep it PG-13.
but for the most part,
but
yeah, like I would want to be just how we do at the gym.
I want it to be cordial. I want it to feel like a natural conversation that
Authentic,
we would
like-
have, or like if
this
we
is-
were golfing and
Yeah.
sitting in the golf cart just talking about
Yeah.
life. Like, hey man, what do you think about fate? Like I was thinking about this the other day, and then just for like 3 holes talking about a thing, like kind of back and forth, take a shot, like,
Yeah.
think about a thing, drink a couple more beers, and like naturally have a flow of conversation that one can like stem new thoughts,
Sure.
create new ideas, or even possibly change an idea that you've had, and maybe you've been like stuck on a thought for a while and like this is how I believe, but then you hear a thing that makes you think a little bit more. You're like, wow, I'd never thought about this particular subject in this light. And maybe you get a different change of opinion, which kind of leads to like a couple of my questions here.
Okay.
So I'll go out of order because we're in this topic, but I wrote here just because I'm curious. Have you ever had a person on the podcast or a topic that was, this is 2 questions. One, absolutely crazy ludicrous that you like remember the most out of anything, like a topic that you were like, I definitely remember this. And like, it was crazy wild, whether it be like illegal or just like something someone says that you're like, wow, you said that on this podcast, you know, this is going online kind of a thing. And obviously if like it's someone that you like don't want to divulge or talk about, like that's
Yeah, I won't
fine.
say
I'm
names or
just
something. Yeah,
curious
yeah,
if like
sure.
there one has ever been one of those like crazy moments on your podcast. So it's been out for 4 years now or so.
Roughly.
Yeah. So 1, any crazy events, and then 2, any like significant like philosophies or life thoughts that you have had like changed or altered because of like someone on the pod. They've said a thing that like resonated with you so much that you're like, you know what? I previously thought a thing, but I think like you giving me like that input or like justification for this thought has changed the way I think about it, or has given me grounds to rethink it. Or maybe I'm questioning a thought. So I guess that one's more related to the very like morally strong things, like the way you were upraised and like just naturally thought, or like, I guess it could be more like complicated, like sexuality, or like, just to give a crazy example, or something like politics. Like, has there been a thing that has like been shaped or changed because of the podcast? So we'll go for the first.
Okay.
Something crazy, and then something that changed you, or maybe you haven't had one of those.
Okay. So something crazy for the most part, you know, the way I do the podcast, you know, if you want to see how the sausage is made, is that, you know, I would have people like send me, what's the word am I like, your, oh what's the word about like your return of your active interest or
Like
call to action.
Yeah,
Is
like
that
if I
is?
were to like submit a grant, the first thing I do is a call to action. It's like a short little paper or letter outlining like my
Yeah.
thoughts, my goals, like
Yeah,
with
it's kind
it.
of like send me like your resume, so to speak.
What is your intentions here, and why are you qualified to talk
Yeah,
about them?
yeah.
And like,
That's
who are you?
They would send me that and write me like a little cover. I didn't ask for a cover letter or anything, but I was like, just tell me like in an email, like, hey, what
Do you seek people out always, or do they seek you out?
At the beginning, it was me seeking them out.
Okay.
Because I would just go on and just find random people, like, and I would not go after any like big names or stuff because I was like, well, there's no way that's
Books
ever.
you heard of, or
Yeah.
a smaller person that you're like, they probably have time.
Like,
and-
people I saw on Instagram or people like books that I've heard or whatever. Like, hey, let's go ahead and just shoot. I mean, what's a stupid email? Why not? So
the worst it's gonna do is go to their spam.
Yeah, but
and they'll never read it.
But for the most part, it's like, well, at least I know my friends will hopefully support me and want to come on and talk and all that bullshit, and that's how it started out. But as far as wild things happen, like there was this one girl, and she was an actress, and she was on, like, I won't say her name, but she was on, like, she did a few things. Like her claim to fame was she had like a couple, what do you call them, like small roles in like Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Like a cameo kind
Sort
of,
of, yeah. But like,
guest
she wasn't a
appearance.
big name, but
Yeah.
like she wasn't no Rob McElhenney by any means. But she just was good enough to be like, yeah, we'll let her play this part,
kind of
like Pizza Delivery Girl or something stupid like that,
right.
But like she came on and like the rage and like to her point right now in her defense was that she was talking about NFTs and how there's the next big thing and fungible tokens. Like remember Bored Ape Club?
Like the art and stuff people were buying, like AI generated art that's randomized,
and like Justin Bieber bought one for like millions of dollars,
valuable for no reason.
Yeah, and it's like it's just a picture on your phone.
Yeah, right. Like, the cryptocurrency trend that
sort
went
of
extra trendy.
She
yeah,
was all about it. Just kept going on. And I was like, lady, I think this is fat. And like, but is that wild and crazy? No, but it was more of just like I don't think so. But I never wanted the podcast to be like got you moments, or I didn't want to call them out and be like
you're wrong.
Yeah.
I disagree with you inherently. You're more trying to get something out of it.
Yeah, but I have some criticism where I should have done that. But I was like, I mean, if that's what she wants to believe, that's fine. But I'm not here to call her out. Or
so he's asking about them now. Do you know did they make it from NFTs?
No, bro. NFTs have like plummeted.
I don't think anyone really made money from that.
That
it was controversial at best, and
like during the phase, like when it was hot, like if you got in and got out, you were okay. But if I'm pretty sure like a couple of like A-list actors, they bought like I think it was Bored Ape Club, like millions of dollars, and all of a sudden now they're worth like 20,000
pennies, pennies on the dollar kind of thing.
It's something stupid, and it was like,
and for them, that's like okay, that was a bad investment. For us, that bankrupt, like the amount of money they're talking, it's crazy to have that kind of money. But that's
like you're buying a picture.
Neither here nor there. But it's crazy she like fixated on that thing.
Yeah,
it clearly
she was all about it
on her brain, and you said she was an actress, so like clearly she's surrounded by individuals that like are famous or like sees it and sees like what people are doing with lots of money, and like, well, if they're doing it, I'm gonna do it. And like
it was just big, it was a fad.
Yeah, and that was. I never understood that one. I never cryptocurrency. Okay, makes sense in a way. Like it's
played with a little bit, but I still have some. Like, but it was just like
Bitcoin or one of the other.
I have a little
bit
of Bitcoin,
something.
but I never like have one full Bitcoin. You could put in
parts of them.
Yeah. Like, all right, why not? But that was like when it was cool. And I'm like, I'll try it.
But at least it's like backed now. It's backed by the DAO. At least it's a tradable. Like now. It's tradable, and at least it's not going anywhere. And at least it completely crashes, which is unlikely, but neither here nor there with finances.
Yeah.
That's like I wouldn't say it's crazy, but that's a like wild take. You're like, you with your career and like things you do, I didn't expect you to come on here and talk about NFTs and investing, but okay, if that's what you want to talk about, like let's go for it. But
I thought we were going to go more towards her career and like her future goals or where she wants to be playing in and stuff and like her background, but somehow we got into that, and I don't remember reading anything about NFTs or like she kept talking about like Internet 3 or Web 3, and I was like, what? Like I don't even know what that is.
I'm not on TikTok enough to know what the hell you're
and
talking
that's where
about.
I was like, there's a misconnect here.
Like,
and
all right, so that was
one of the wildest ones,
crazy, wild, out of pocket, maybe.
But it wasn't like she was over there like saying, like
conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
or
like big.
but...
I got raped by Bigfoot. Like, what?
Okay, I don't want to say you didn't, but
there was
elaborate.
I never did get anything like that.
Okay.
which was good. But like I said, that was also me kind of screening people. I'm like,
Ever have anyone get like, we're obviously drinking. Last time I got a little inebriated, I'd say. I guess towards the end of the audio, you could probably tell. But like, still functional human being, had coherent thoughts and logic. But have you ever had someone get like wasted to the point you either had to like scrap the episode or have you ever scrapped an episode?
No,
really?
I never did scrap an episode. There was never anything to that nature. Nobody was really drinking on the podcast. Really, there was Well, I almost did scrap one. That was good, and this was a lot on me because it was early in the podcast, and she is a Jen Mueller. She is a not an analyst, but she's like a media person for the Seattle Mariners, and she does the Seattle Kraken and all that.
Okay.
And I had her on, and like she was really good. The conversations was going really well, and she was talking about how she takes notes during the games and stuff like that. And I misspoke and said something to where that I try not to do a whole lot of like note taking and stuff just because I'm trying to be in the moment right here and like listen to exactly what you're saying.
For you, it makes you feel disconnected a
right.
little bit,
and
not focused. But for other people, it makes them feel focused.
Right. And she took offense to it. And I was like, and like she's like, I can't believe you would say something like that. And I was like, no. I've started stumbling over my words.
I'm not judging you, but
yes. And I told her, I was like, listen, like I'm not stumbling or talking about your profession or saying it's wrong to take notes or like be in the moment or whatever. But she was talking about how she's in the stands and she's writing down stats as they play and stuff like that. But I was just I'm butchering it really bad, but
kind of like, how do you stay focused and keep
that.
those notes?
And I was like, no. I was like, listen, like I'm just trying to say, like, this is me doing a podcast. This is me just trying to riffing off what you're saying, as opposed to like, like, oh, did I look up all your stats and what you've been on and like doing all this? Like, I usually go get a brief background of them, and that way I got talking points in my head, but. I was like, but if you're actually in the game and you have to go interview Ken Griffey Jr. is what I said, and you have to know his stats per take right there on the field, then like that's completely different. And I was like,
that's perfect. You're set up for success. You've got your talking points. Like say you're pulled on camera randomly, like
and then plus I was like, you only get like 3 minutes with that guy right after a ball game, where I'm you with an hour.
Every second counts.
Yeah,
right?
And so I was like, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I didn't mean that at all. And so that was one of the worst.
How offended on like a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being like, I assume they weren't here personally. They were like Zoom or something.
They were always by Zoom. But
so like, how offended do you think they were? Like to the point that they would have probably shut down the Zoom call quickly, or like?
I thought that was about to happen because she was like, I can't believe you said that, or something like to that.
It's interesting. Like they would have, especially like the position in life, like they're successful clearly, and like. Have notoriety to their name. Yeah. It's interesting that they would be offended by a statement or a comment like that, where like, I'm sure you're not the only one to have commented on like, oh, you take notes. Like, how do you stay focused? Or like, that's interesting. I don't see a lot of people doing that. That's like,
I remember going back and just re-listening to it, and I was like, I know I misspoke and just kind of said it in a terrible way, but I just remember keep listening to it, and I was like, I can't put this out there.
You did eventually though.
No, I went on ahead, and like she was like, all right, like after I tried to explain to her, I was like, no, I was trying to differentiate between us two about me doing what I'm doing versus you as a sports interviewer or whatever. And she was like, okay, I'm smiling again. And like, I remember her saying that, and I was like,
she got heated and defensive though. Like almost like she was put into a corner.
Yeah. But like, I mean, like, it was like, I took it as like, she thought I was calling her out for something. I was like, no, it was just completely a misread by any means.
Interesting.
But it was good that, it was good. I wrote her an email even completely after the interview, and I was like, hey, I just want to apologize.
Formal apology.
I think I even asked her, I was like, do you still want to put the episode out? If not, I completely understand. And she was very appreciative and like, sympathetic to me. It was like, no, let's go ahead and do it. Like, it's all good. I'm cool. And she even shared some of the episode on her content or her platform.
And a thing of it too is like sometimes getting into that heatedness or showing passion or emotion it's a humanizing thing that we were saying, like with Kevin Hart, like hearing him talk was humanizing, but like hearing a person that's that successful get offended or like feel critiqued by someone that no offense to you, but you're not at her level of
sure. I mean, I was like, right there with.
Success.
I was nervous even doing it.
Right, you're the one that's nervous, and she should feel like in control. And I am I know all the things that I'm a master of what's in my brain. I'm going to talk about what I know, and like then to feel attacked by someone that is just questioning them.
Yeah, that was really defeating and demoralizing for me because, I mean, I even sought her out and was like, hey, you know, I sent her like, hey, would you want to come on this podcast? It's just a casual conversation, blah, blah, blah. And she accepted. And I was like, she's going to be a pretty big name. And this was like within the top first 100s of the episodes of the.
How many you're at?
Well, you're like 200 and some now. So 220s, I think. And so, but I remember just being like, oh, this is like one of the bigger names I have. And I remember going into it being nervous, and then like instantly, like then all of a sudden it's like you bomb, and you're like, this is all going terribly. Oh my god, what do I do?
Like almost the worst thing that could have happened, like happened. And like sure, she didn't curse you out, and like you guys weren't fighting like on audio, but like you clearly offended someone and you didn't mean to, and that's not the intent of your podcast. It's like sometimes Joe Rogan does intend to offend people or like elicit a response from an individual, whether it's choreographed or true is like neither here nor there, but it like the raw emotion that you can get from people in this kind of scenario where it's raw. This is like, sure, I'm taking notes and I've got some things I want to say, but like, and I've got thoughts about things, but like it is off the cuff. Like everything I'm saying is like not premeditated. It's
well, no, I was doing the same thing. It was like write notes and stuff in the beginning and stuff, but I just noticed that, like I was just saying that, I was like, well, I want to ask something else that I don't want to write that down first. I want to go with that first. And
even me right here, like trying to like write a note and still listen to you, even though it's like a word or two, it like for that 1 second or two, I almost like space out, like, and I'm not able to like listen to what you're saying.
No.
But I'm like still focused. It's like, but I'm doing this to remain focused. So I completely understand like their position. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. But it's interesting they felt so offended. Have you ever had any others that like got heated as well, or was that like probably your top?
That was the top one. I just instantly just knew. I was like, all right, podcast is done. I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And like I stopped for a couple of weeks, and like after I wrote the email and stuff, and finally was like, all right, you know, I think we're cool now. I've got to get back up on a horse and go. But no, I mean, I've never had another one where we've actually had a full debate or anything like that. But it was just the way part of it, like it's part of Rogan. Like I treat it how Rogan does his podcast, but like, you know, like you're the content, the way I see it. It's like you come on here.
He's the vessel for it.
Yeah. Like podcasting is like the new late night comedy or not late night talk show host.
That's a great way to like,
like
analogize.
That's the way I thought of it. That's like the new age because people would go on Jimmy Fallon or Jay Leno and they would, you know, hey, I got, you know, movies coming out next week, blah, blah, blah.
Guest star on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, here's 5 minutes of whatever. And then like now, but like, you know, when you listen to podcasts now, I mean, that's what the person's doing. They go on a podcast. Yeah, it's like an hour plus long conversation, but at the end of it, they're like, yeah, I got the movie coming out. I got my book coming out.
It's free advertisement.
But you are learning more about the person rather than just a 5-minute cameo or 5-minute spiel they just did. So
I always like to think about it like a Joe Rogan podcast. That if that person had like a wiki page, or they likely do, that wiki page just got updated with like personal things about them. Like there's now a new heading if there wasn't personal traits and things like that. Like it's been expanded upon because the lore, the history of that person that hasn't been divulged or talked about because that's not what they do. We now know more about them. Like like the story has expanded a bit. And like you said, like Joe Rogan is not, he's the host, but he's the vessel for the entertainment. Yes. He facilitates it and makes sure that it communicates and there's conversation and it flows and explains things or asks for clarification. That's one of the greatest things I think is he's very quick to admit he doesn't know it. Well, he'll say things that aren't true, then be fact checked and be like, yeah, you're right. But admit that he's wrong or like doesn't know a thing. Explain this, please. Like,
and that's one of the things I respect about him too. It's just that, oh, okay. Like he doesn't mind admitting when he's wrong. He doesn't mind like, Jamie, pull that up. Wait, is that right? Did I just say that right? I'm like, oh, okay. Like I wish I had somebody fact checking me in real life right now. Like, but I mean, we're not going on any heated debates right now or anything or topics.
I remember last time though, I think we made a comment about that. I was like, man, I keep saying these facts, but I wish that we had someone fact check. I'm like, I'm sure I've said something wrong here or there, but that's
like I mean, I'm the same way. Like when I try to paraphrase something I've heard or repeat it, not paraphrase or both, but. I'm like, oh, that was way. Or I said that way poorly.
A lot of us nowadays will say like, oh yeah, I read a thing. Like I read this research or I read a thing.
They said.
But it's really you saw like a YouTube short or a TikTok about a thing, and you're like, I read it. You're not wrong. You did read it, but like, how how true was that? Like,
that's
know,
what I
or
realized when people say they said. Well, who the fuck is they? You know, and I was like,
clarify that for
yeah,
me,
like
please,
did
if
you
would.
like
Yeah.
did you get that from Instagram influencer, or was that literally written by a professor of Cambridge University?
And peer-reviewed study,
Exactly.
and like on the front page of Science, or like, and like the authenticity of those things like have a lot of weight. So that's a hell of an experience, though. I think both of those are good, like especially since they seem to happen earlier. You said in the history of the podcast, so it was like developing for you, and it was almost a point where you'd said that you almost quit doing it altogether. You put yourself out there, and you're like, well, I'm defeated. I offended someone. I like feel like I did them wrong.
Yeah, I was
like,
fucked up over it.
Like I am not good at this. Probably self-defeat. You're in your head.
Yeah.
But then to continue doing it, and you've definitely learned from it. You're like, okay, well, I know now to like tread a little bit more carefully or choose the words that I say. Maybe it was like one specific word in that sentence you said to her that set her off. It was like the tone because of that one word. And now they're in the defensive because they felt like you put them there, even though that wasn't the intent. It happens. Dude. And like that even happened to me during my my exam I took on Monday for my postdoc. Like it started and I was so nervous and the nerves were firing and like I couldn't even think. And my one advisor was like, yeah, so I'm looking at chapter 1 and I don't understand why you chose these insecticides for your treatment. Like what's the justification here? I don't see any of it. And
like, oh,
I'm like, in my head, I'm like, dude, you've been a part of my committee for 4 years. Like you've been a part of these decision makings from the very get-go. And to make this statement now is one, like, have you been paying attention? So I'm like in my head, like, does he even care? Like, did he just read my like work now and is like now questioning it? Or like, maybe he didn't think about it then? Or like, I got defensive. I was like, well, we actually had a very limited amount of time and we had to get pesticide trials on there and we were working with what we had. And I know, like in my writing, I justified some of these pesticides. Sure, some of them I didn't justify enough or give a reasoning to. But like, I do have one. And you're right. I should add that to my work. But like the way he came at me, and because it was the beginning, and my nerves were so high, and I felt like attacked. It was the tone he had. It was the look he had. The way he was holding his laptop and like looking at it. It was all like, he thinks I'm a fucking idiot right now. And like where I was sitting, working for my PhD, I was like, I'm being attacked right now.
Like he would want to get you.
And I clearly got a little defensive. All my committee members at the end of it, like when we were getting drinks, they commented there, like for a moment there, we were a little worried that things were going to get heated between us and like you were going to get like a bit emotional. But like I thought to myself, as soon as I had these thoughts, it was almost instantaneous. It was like, these people here are to better me. I am the master of my research, and sure, I didn't justify it in the writing, but I know why I did a thing. And they're here to make my writing better, to make me the best version of myself. Like me coaching another person, they're my coaches and encouraging me. And once I had balanced it out and realized it, I was like, you know what? Take a deep breath, answer the questions, and then the rest of the like exam was easy. But like in a way, it felt relatable to what you just said. Like I was put on the defensive, and don't think that he expected to do that to me. And I think if I had like recorded him and shown him how he presented the information to me, it would have been like, oh yeah, I did kind of come at you a little cross there. Like, so like he probably didn't realize what he did. And then I got overly emotional, and like, that's a thing too. Emotions, like, you know, so.
Do you believe emotional intelligence?
Can you elaborate on that or give me an example potentially?
You know Jordan Peterson?
Dude, you're so great with names and people. I feel like so disconnected with pop culture. I don't know who that is. So quick rundown on them.
Quick rundown. He used to be a professor, I think, at University of Toronto. I want to say, and he was psychologist at one point. So I guess he taught psychology there.
Okay.
But his main claim, I mean, it's not a claim to fame, but when woke culture started coming out and like people were being asked to be called by whatever they wanted to be called.
So like late teens of the 20th century or middle teens, like 2015 plus kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
But he was like, he refused. I'm not going to call you by what you want to be called. I'm going to call you by how I see you and stuff.
Okay.
So like if I see you as a him, hey, like I'll call you a he or whatever.
Right.
And so people
call it as I see it.
Yeah, basically. And so like that was his thing, and just that. And he's a very smart person, but the University of Toronto ended up trying to exacerbate him. and
kick him out.
Yeah, you basically just because of that, because he was like, no, I'm not going to confine to their rules. Like I'm going to be how I want to be. But anyway, so now he's got a huge podcast and a huge following because people are like, yeah, I'm with that, man. Like,
So to this day, does he still like hold to that? Like, is that the like narrative or the theme of the podcast is like
no,
be yourself kind of a thing, or
well,
like
just bettering yourself.
Yeah.
But
not following all the trends or like what society like is trying to make you
Sorta,
think kind of a thing.
But
don't be a sheep, maybe is like
don't be a sheep. That's part of it, and like actually like
to dumb it down, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
and
be
then there was
sheep.
part of it too that in the beginning he really wasn't. I didn't take him as a religious person, but now he's gotten to where he's almost very Christian, and which that's not the point of his podcast, but a lot of it, like he's starting to teach like kind of biblical things.
The principles of like religion come into his thought, and like why he's may not like explicitly be like quoting it. It like you can clearly see the like undertones, maybe right. Is what you're trying to say?
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say, but anyway, he was one of those people that. Wait, man, I lost my train of thought now.
He.
Why did I say if you know who he was?
Because he didn't change his like mindset on the like woke culture, and then like left the university, and then like created his own podcast, and.
But there was something before that part that you said that he did. Crap. This is what we did last time.
We did it last time. Oh, man, it's embarrassing when that happens.
Yeah,
but regardless,
but anyway,
moving
like,
forward.
I guess his most part is that he brings people on there and he just learns from them, and he's not trying to challenge them and by any means, but he just learns from them, and like he's very articulate in the way he talks, and you can tell like I guess maybe this was my point. He's like debating but not debating at the same time, and like he'll give them references, and like he'll say like. I can't give you a good example. Like he had a gambler on one time that I listened to, and was just getting to their deep thoughts of like, why are you a gambler? Like, where's your addiction coming from? And
but it's almost like the questioning is like not so transparent or like cookie cutter. Like those are obvious questions that like for sure you wanted to ask me. So what is it like to like be a doctorate, right?
Yeah.
But instead of asking it so forward, you find a more casual way. So like, so last week was an important week for you. Do you want to talk about it?
No.
Like casually make it seem like a thing that I now want to talk about. So like, I think what I'm saying there is like he has a way of communicating. NPR, I heard a talk called master communicator. Sure. And it seems like they're an individual where like they do have very like select views. They're like probably slightly controversial or not like normally agreed upon in our like society, like right now per se, like with the woke thing you said. But it's like his thought and he can justify it. But he's what I'm saying here is he's a good communicator because he's able in a way to like extract information from someone without feeling like they're being attacked or in a corner and like, oh, okay, explain that. Or like justify his comment with like, oh, I read this paper recently about XYZ that conflicts with what you're saying here. What do you think about that? Have you read that paper? Yeah. Like, not giving his opinion per se, but still kind of like leaking it in a little bit. Like, and I think that's a good like takeaway from a good communicator, and something I've like seen with you like through the podcast here is like a way to pull conversation from a person, pull story, explain that more, but you're not saying that. It's like because that's bland. Like no.
Yeah,
you just please explain that
just like
more.
A run-of-the-mill questions right here.
Right,
just,
like, but if you can make it feel flowy, natural, and digestible, and it's more relatable, it feels more personable, and you really can elicit responses and thoughts from people that they might. I've had thoughts on this, like with you in the last 2 times we've done this now, that I don't even think I've thought of until like we talk about it. It's like the rawness of it, the naturalness can be like very.
That's the beauty of it for me. Is like. I feel like my curiosity comes out a little bit, and that just because like I want to learn, I want to know more about Jason. I want to learn about like you were talking about trials and tribulations and stuff, and because it's fun for me too. Because when you're talking about nature versus nurture, like what did he fucking do that I didn't do? And it's like, oh man, like he's got something snappy, he's got something extra.
Like how did life get him to where he's at?
Like why did our roads meet?
Right,
was that fate? I mean, I don't know. I mean, was it?
Who fucking knows?
Like I think about shit like that all the time.
It's a good loop around back to like fate, though. But like silly as that like might be, like us sitting here doing a podcast right now, like everything I've done in my life, in a way, has shaped me to be doing this podcast.
Sure.
And like, sure, it's not like is great as getting a PhD, but it's fun. It's enjoyable. I'm putting myself out there. We're talking, having a good time, and like exchanging information, ideas, thoughts, and like that's like some of the best conversation you can ever have with a person. Have you ever been super drunk at a party or something, or hanging out with a group of people and everyone else leaves and you and another person are having a talk and it goes till 3, 4 in the morning. And by the time you look at the clock, you realize how drunk you are. All the alcohol's gone. You're like, it's 4 in the morning and we just talked for
so what have you been doing?
Hours.
Yeah,
and like those types of moments are like the ones that you remember the most. You know, those are the parties you remember, not because you got obliterated, but because you had a life moment that you will maybe remember, maybe not remember, but it'll influence you in a way. Like you
remember bits and pieces.
Connected with a person in a level that's like almost borderline intimate. Like, and by intimate I mean like I guess sexual, but it's like parallel to that.
Deep cut conversation that you don't randomly have.
I've said this word recently in the past couple of minutes, but it's raw, it's powerful, and it's connecting with the person, and that's why like sexuality is a really big thing, is because you are connecting with a person in a way you don't regularly.
Sure.
And that's where conversation that's deep like this, whether it be life or experiences or your podcast, like it's deep and it makes you talk about things you don't get to and rethink about things and experience other people's life. Or I was going to say it earlier, but like a lot of what we're talking about is like almost the definition of like wisdom. It's not like what you know or who you know in a sense, which it really is who you know is where you get in life. But it's the things you take away from people, the life lessons you learn from them. When someone gives you advice and you take it, that's wisdom. Like this type of conversation, to me, exemplifies wisdom, because we're both putting ourselves out there to each other, to the world in a sense, and putting our like life experiences and things we've learned out there and offering wisdom to each other, to other people, and even maybe to ourselves as well. And I think that's like one of the greatest takeaways with like a Joe Rogan style podcast, or like the way you run this, is like it really can elicit a lot of emotions that you can't get on like a scripted podcast, or like a themed podcast that maybe like works on a video game or a movie or like those are so catered to a particular thing that you can not get some of those elements, that the humanality to it. Sure, it's a hobby or a thing you're into, and that's fun and enjoyable, but there's also this element of humanness that we're getting right here, right now, that people pay for, you know, like therapy, counseling, life coaches, CrossFit coaches. Like people pay for that type of connection with the person, and to just have it naturally, and then to be willing to put it out there for other people, to be vulnerable, exposed, and be like, yeah, someone might watch what I say or the last time I said it and be like, that guy's a fucking idiot. But you know what? I was me and I put myself out there, and it's raw. But I kind of meandered there a little bit and we lost track of what we were talking about. We just started this second
that was
talk
good.
and like going into your podcast. I didn't know a lot about like the history of the podcast, and maybe some people are like tuning in for the first time or like forgot about it and are curious about some of it. One like last or two last questions about your podcast, I guess, since we're still on the topic here, and it'll shift it a little bit. Ever have like a incredibly famous person, or who is, or not who, but have you had someone that's been quite famous, multi-million-dollar, like someone you're like, I can't believe I talked to them. Like I sent them an email and their agent emailed me back and was like, we'll do the podcast. Like, have you ever had one of those? Or
2 or 3 of them. I mean, probably the one that was most famous to me was the one I was telling you about, the sports interview with Jen Mueller.
Because you almost maybe idolize her, that might be a strong word, but like she was doing like a thing in a field that you like.
Yeah, like I was respected that. Now
like I would love to do that job. Like that sounds great, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
right?
and I remember when she answered the email that I went and watched one of the Seattle Mariners games, and I was like, "That's her. She's right there doing it." Like it was at the end of the game.
Like I'm gonna be talking.
Like she's gonna be on this show next week. But there was one girl, Christina. I can't remember her last name, but she was a big fitness influencer, like huge still. And she's got like, do you know who Cameron Haynes is?
Dude, you're so crazy with names. I was at a wedding last night and don't remember probably but 2 names that I met.
Okay.
Like I'm one, bad with names, and 2, like bad with pop culture and
well, he's more of like a David Goggins kind of guy.
So
Maybe still.
you said fitness influencer, so yeah, like
So,
right, like so.
yeah, like Cameron's like he bow hunts. He runs like a marathon every fucking day, like literally. He's an ultra marathon guy. But anyway, like he follows her and stuff. And I remember like when she was like, "I'm gonna come on a podcast and stuff," and I was like, "Oh shit, she's good." Like, and
She reached out to you, or you reached out to
I
her?
think her agent actually reached out to me, and that's how and this is why I got weird. Is because I was like, yeah, like let's do it. Like I checked her stuff out, and like she was like, she was actually, I'll show you her Instagram after the show, and like I was like, okay, I mean, she's talking about her diets, what she does, and blah blah blah. I mean,
Still a fitness influencer then?
yep.
Okay.
From last time I checked, anyway. But immediately she got on the camera. Maybe I probably shouldn't have said her name, but whatever. I mean, I don't know if she listens to the
It's
podcast.
already been recorded. It's out there.
Yeah,
We're
it's out
just
there now.
touching
But anyway,
back on it.
but I mean, well, this was my thoughts. I mean, so immediately she's like, she had her camera. She's like, I'm just going to like kind of tilt it this way and like not really show my face or whatever.
She had her own camera, or she moved your camera?
No, like on her webcam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You were zooming or,
we're
or
on-
video
we-
call. Or
I did them
whatever.
all on
Yeah,
Zoom.
yeah. Okay.
And so, but I was like, what? Like I was meaning like, well, I said something. I was like, all right, is everything okay? Should we reschedule this or whatever? And she was like, no, I'm just not feeling okay today. And I was like, well, that's fine. I said, we can reschedule. This is no problem. And she was like, no, let's just go ahead and do it. And I was like, do you
Or
not
we can just do audio only, or like,
and I was like, do you not want to be here? But I remember like the whole like show, like it was kind of like just showing like her side of the face,
uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I was like,
like
what? It's like, does she not want to be here? Like, does she just
or be seen, or
Yeah,
like associated with it,
Yeah,
or
that was
like,
is this like demeaning to her to be on this podcast right now?
like, and we don't know like what was in their mind or thought at the time, but like
Yeah.
that's the way it came across to you. Their body language, their demeanor
Yeah,
was picked up in that way, especially because you're like, we're doing a thing that's going online. Like other people are going to be seeing
I was
you
like,
do
"You're
this,
a
and like,
fitness influencer." And I was like, I mean, and I gave her a way out. I was like, hey, we're not recording yet. We're done. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to not do this or reschedule, just do it.
or just cut the visual. Like, did you always do visual, or is this?
Yeah, I
like,
always did visual. There was a couple people who said there was one guy I know. He's like, I don't want to turn my camera on. I was like, I don't care. So I would just put up like his like, send me a photo that you want me to put up, and I did that. And like, so I think I did the same thing for her. I just put up her main profile picture or whatever
Yeah.
she sent me, her headshot.
some people just love watching like the YouTube of it, like versus listening to the audio. They're still listening, but they like may look every now and then and be like, oh, they just took a shot, or like,
Yeah.
what does this person look like?
Yeah, that's why I did the video version, because I heard like if you want to be a big dog, do the video version too. And I was
Well,
like,
it's like more interaction online. You put it on YouTube, you've now doubled your chance
Yeah.
that someone will click on the thing and interact.
plus, it's pretty
with it,
interesting
but,
to
like,
actually watch it too. Like you were just saying, like, oh, they're taking shots right now.
Yeah, I know, I know.
What are they doing?
Anytime I've like gone back to like look at some of them, I always go to the video. I'm
Yeah.
like, I want to know what that person looks like, or like I want to, because you can see emotion too. Like, sure, we're getting like a profile view of us, but like when I watch it back, like you can see like my body language, the way I'm trying to talk to you, my enthusiasm about a thing, or like you just said about them, like their avoidance
Yeah.
to being filmed, or like at that particular day, maybe they just weren't feeling like sociable or whatever it may have been, but like that's
But to your original question, was she a millionaire? I think not officially, but I think she had her own supplement line, and she has a lot of views on Instagram and all that. Was one of the reasons why I was like, oh, maybe she puts this out. We help each other out.
This could be
you know?
big for me, and it could be good for her, and,
Yeah.
and like
And then I've had a couple entrepreneurs on that claimed that they were multimillionaires because they did,
who knows if that money is just invested or something
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
it's weird to
you can
claim
say
that you
that
have
all
money
day.
if it's
I mean, is
invested, right? Like,
are you a millionaire on paper? Do you actually have it in your accounts?
how much
But-
cash do you have in your safe?
Yeah,
And
like,
unfortunately,
what
it's
do you got on
awkward
you
to
right
ask
now?
that question. Joe Rogan probably could comfortably do it because he's also a millionaire.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah, millionaires can ask millionaires that, but if you're not a millionaire, now we're kind of getting into weird ground about money. But
I did have a sports gambler come on, and he did. I was like, "Hey man, is
a
any
sports gambler, so they
professional sports gambler? Like,
they
he
bet
bets
on
everything,
horse everything,
like baseball, basketball, all the big stuff,
like Biff in Back to the Future #2,
Yep.
like has
Yeah,
the sports
yeah.
almanac and okay,
Yeah.
like one of them.
Yeah, but I did like ask him before. He's like, "Hey, anything that's off the table that we don't want to talk about and stuff." He's like, "Don't ask me how much I make." I'm like, fair enough.
Easy. You're like, I wasn't going to, but
Yeah, and I was like, I get that. So
then when they say that, you're almost like, man, I want to.
what you
I'm
making,
a little
bro?
curious.
What you point
now.
out?
I'm
Like, you losing?
clearly, either one, you're trying to hide something from some people.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the government or sharks or whatever it may be. You don't want to assume like negativeness, but like also like if you're betting, you don't want people to know how much you got too, to like I don't know. I don't. It's funny because like making like not a lot of money. Like I disclosed how much I already make currently and how much I'm projected to make in the next like month. And like I'm comfortable talking about that because I know it's a drop in the bucket for a lot of people. It's not a lot of money, but for me, it's significant and will change my life. And like it's a lot for me. And like it's crazy how like as you start making more money, that question or topic starts becoming more taboo. Like to ask someone, how much do you make?
Yeah.
Or it's a really weird flex. It's like you are only in a social group a certain social group if you make X amount of money. Like it is like a bar to entry kind of a thing. And I wonder like where is that cutoff at? Like what dollar sign do I have to make to feel like I need to hide how much I make?
Yeah, I don't know.
Right? Like
that's a good question.
because like I'm sure like
I was always taught you never ask anybody that.
right unless you're friends and like having a conversation
Unless they just randomly tell you. I was like, don't even like.
But
ask.
really, you shouldn't, right? It's unless they divulge it. Like it's like asking someone their age, specifically a woman.
Sure.
Like you never ask them. I have a very close friend that never heard that. He was like, no one ever told me to not ask a woman their age. And then someone that I'm friends with had a birthday, and they asked them, "How old are you?" And they got pissed. You never ask a woman their age. Like, and my buddy was then like, dude, I think I pissed them. I don't think they want to be friends with me ever again. Like, I really pissed them off. I was like, dude, have you never heard that you don't ask a woman their age? Like, that's just like common.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, that's like.
Like, I would be more curious to how many people don't know that like social rule versus like. But like going off of social, I just thought that was an interesting little like quib. But like going off of social rules, like when do you draw the line at asking someone or like divulging comfortably how much you make versus being like I need to be reserved on how much I make? Interesting thought, but like it's neither here nor there. It matters not. It's just curious thought. Put that in the brain vault for now. But
yeah, those are the ones off the top of my head I could say that were self-proclaimed millionaires.
So it seems then, I guess now I'm kind of like interviewing you in a sense. Part 2 is me interviewing Shelor. So then I guess like my final question here, you've told me about some highs, some lows, some interesting like developing moments in like this podcasting. Where do you, put you on the spot a little bit, where do you see like it going in the future? Continuing how it is, like kind of sporadic, or do you like want to go more with it, or do you want to like eventually phase it out, or like where do you want to get bigger, focus on more topics, get more selective? Like I guess it's open to you. Where do you see this hobby, passion, side hustle, well, whatever it may be, if it makes any side hustle from like ads or revenue or anything like that, but does like, yeah, where do you see it going? I guess, that's open to you. Take it wherever you want.
This is something I've been battling. Because it's why, for the last few years, I told myself, put an episode out every Monday.
So you like made a schedule kind of a thing. I have to do
every
this.
Monday at 6 a.m. There's going to be a new episode.
Yeah.
And like, that's going to, give people something to look forward to. It'll give them
that was gross. I just took it as in on camera. I'm sorry for anyone watching that.
But
sorry.
No, I don't. You don't apologize to me. I didn't care. But anyway, yeah, that was like my thing. Is like do this. That way, people will know like every Monday their new episode's coming out. That'll keep people drawn in or whatever and stuff. And so like that consumed me so much. Was like, I got to make content. I got to do something. Whether it's solo episode, whether it's I got to find somebody to come on the podcast. I got to do something. And I would like, I bounce around a bunch of different podcasts. Like, what are they doing? Okay, should I do this episode this way? Blah blah blah.
Inspiration ideas.
Yeah. And so like I would try to almost kind of change up each episode. Like kind of when I brought in some of these cards. Like like let's do some random cards because there's one
which I would love to get to at some point.
We'll do that like we did last time.
Yeah,
we'll do like
phase out.
The outro part of it, the fun part, and then but like there's one podcast I used to listen to called like Answer the Internet, and they would do like, would you rather give up sex or the TV remote? Like they would answer questions like that.
Well, that's an easy one. The TV remote, like any day of the week, all day. Like even if I like had ED or like had a micro penis, I would always say I will give up the remote because I could. If I've got an older TV, I can just go up and click the channels. I don't need a remote. Ha, got you. Now I got the best of both. But it was to your point.
But they would do questions like that. And I was like, oh, maybe I should start doing stuff like that. Because like whatever I'm doing, maybe it's not working. But anyway, I started to kind of let it go because I was like, I don't know where I'm going anymore. I got to where, I've said this before, that I've been interviewing a lot of entrepreneurs, life coaches, self-proclaimed millionaires, and I was like, man, this conversation sucks. And I'm not calling anybody out, but I was like, all right, you had a bad time. All right, cool. You decided to stop drinking and smoking and doing crack, and now you wanted to write a book.
Which is, in its way,
and that's
inspirational, but, like, you hear it so many times, or it's like...
I mean, we talked about this 3 weeks ago to 2 or 3 same other people, and people who were self-published authors and stuff. And I'm not taking anything away from them, and that's great that they're doing it, but I was like, all right, man, this is like the same theme. This is so boring to me.
As an audience listener, you got to always think, like, I'm making this content for people, but, like, think of myself as a listener. Do I want to hear these, like, same, like, and not to, like, downplay it, but very similar kind of, like,
it was. It was all the same conversation.
Inspirational story of someone's success. I cleaned my act up, focused on a thing,
and I was like, I don't want the podcast to go this way. I was like, I'm like, if I'm bored, they're going to be bored.
Almost getting a little too, like, formal, maybe, or like, I think it was what I was relating to, and why I said, like, Joe Rogan's a great, like, person to model off of, is because there is no, like, theme to his show. It's the Joe Rogan show, and that is the theme. And the weekly theme is, who am I bringing on? Right. That's the theme,
and that's what I wanted.
Yeah. So you
did it, and then it was just more of just like, well, there for a while, I just kept getting people who wanted to come on the show that were more entrepreneurial life coaches, like more not like, well, can we talk about fitness, or can we talk about, I don't know, do you believe in free will? Do you believe in fate? Like,
tell me
like
something
that.
Crazy you've done.
Yeah,
or like,
like, did you have encounters with Bigfoot or aliens? Like, tell me something different.
Yeah, well, let's have an interesting conversation that someone can listen to in their car and be like zoned out, but not zoned out, but be like, that was entertaining.
Like, did you ever murder somebody? I mean, like.
Dude, I have dreams of murdering people. It's terrible. Like, I have dreams, not that I've murdered a person, like, physically. It's always, like, I'm burying a body. And I'm, like, I'll wake up, like, because it's so real, thinking I'm, like, looking for the dirt, or, like, being like, oh, my gosh, they're going to find me. Like, my friends that are cops are going to come to my house and arrest me.
Oh, gosh.
Like... Sorry, that was a really tangent, but that's like a weird dream. Like, I wouldn't say it's like reoccurring, but I've definitely had it a few times in my life, and it's like always been around like very stressful times. But like, it's like clearly I've got some baggage or something I'm holding on to that I'm not processing. Is like, I think how I like try to analyze it. I have a dream journal to just like write them down, like bad ones and stuff. But like, that's how I think of like those types of it's baggage, but. I get away from what we were talking about there.
No,
it was the future goal. You've grown
from
it.
We'll go back from that. But anyway, like to your point though, like recently Joe Rogan had somebody come on, like, and I forgot their organization, but he brings like convicts who were done wrong onto the show, and they were like,
okay, like falsely tried or something,
or whatever, like, found guilty.
It was found out years later that they were actually innocent.
But they go into jail and they figure out how to learn to write and learn more.
Get a degree.
And they do stuff like that, and they actually come out like, no, see, I was not wrong. I was right. I didn't do this or whatever. But
I'm also the 1% that rehabilitated myself in college.
But then here recently, like the guy who came on recently did that, and I was talking about how he didn't do anything. He killed somebody like the next month. Then he put like a wig on, and he didn't know how cameras worked or something. I'm kind of butchering that, but. Like,
wait.
We talking about it. Like, yeah, I fucked that up.
On Rogan's show?
So he came on Rogan.
I thought you meant he came on your show for a second. And I know you just said Rogan, but I was like, wait a minute.
No, I never had anybody like that.
That would have been crazy. I was like, why didn't you say that when I asked you about a crazy guest?
I did have one guy, he said he went to jail for something falsely accused, but it was kind of more like taxes or something stupid like that.
And I'm sure you've had plenty of people that have said they've been to jail or experienced jail or have a negative run-in in life. I mean, shit, even myself, I've experienced that and talked about it at length. I think the last time, but like, so on Joe Rogan's show, that guy he came on, talked about himself, right? And then
him and the guy who runs the organization, how they've kind of helped each other out to get him like, hey, we're getting you out of jail because you didn't do this and stuff. And they ended up killing some guy the next month. But he put on like some random wig or something.
He was out of jail when he
he was out of jail and like he was free. And then he went and was like, what the?
He's like, wow, I advocated for this guy and they actually are. Like, they didn't do the crime then, but now they've done it now.
But
like,
it was funny. Rogan was like, yeah, I guess I didn't really look into that one too much.
Fuck that up.
Yeah, kinda.
It's like, well, I mean, it's good content, too, though, in a way. Because
it made me chuckle. It was like,
well, in a sense, too, it's like a historical testimony, too. Like, you've got a one-on-one with this guy that in the future at that time commits a major crime. Like not only one influences their life, but ends another person's life. It's significant for a lot of people. Their family are probably feeling a certain way. So like to be able to go back in a way is like, imagine being a family member of the victim there and being able to go to the Joe Rogan podcast and listen to the guy that like, you know, murdered your like family member or a friend or something, and hear them, like a personality, a side of them, and then be like, wow, it's like weird to like almost connect or like feel like I know that person more. But it's like, it's a testimonial in a way. Like it's now a clip in time for all of human history that like that's there. That person's thing that he did up until that point's now documented. And now with history and news, we know what they did shortly after that. So like I don't really know my point there, but I think it's just kind of an interesting thing to be like, it's documented, and like we now have like audio testimonies of like his character or like a statement of his character on a podcast that's like with a person that's very not formal. So we saw the personal side of them, and then to see a major crime, it's like, wow, okay.
Dude, like, that blew my mind.
And the coincidence of it all then too, like is...
Yeah, the guy who runs the organization, I wonder what's going through his head, like where he helps all these convicts try to get out and stuff.
Like, I mean, because it clearly is like going to not look great.
No.
But also, too, it's like, can you blame me? I did the right thing. I got the guy out of jail. He was falsely accused, and that's like the point of law, right? Is guilty or innocent till proven guilty. This guy was done wrong by the justice system, and then like right was made, and that's like very rare, right? That like right can be wronged in a sense, but then to go and do a wrong right after it is like, what am I even fighting for? I got this guy. It's like a pro bono lawyer that like the person ends up getting convicted for something they didn't. You know, like I wasted my time and didn't even get paid. But I digress. But
going back to your original question.
Yeah, future goals are like ambitions. So
that's what I've been
for
dealing
the podcast
with for the most part. That's why I slowed it down, because
like, so you're on like a kind of, what's your pace right now?
Well, I found that I enjoyed like having like you, my friends on. You know, like let's just sit around and talk. Let's have some whiskey.
You said that last time too, that you really enjoyed.
It's more fun. Like we're in person and doing it, and like it's a different energy compared to like.
And like I wrote down things to talk about. We have talked about a lot of them, but like we didn't do it because I was like, oh yeah, now we don't have a thing to talk about. Let's talk about this. It just like flowed, and it was.
Yeah, and it works out that way. And plus, you know, we're feeding off each other, and just doing it on Zoom, you're just like, I just remember just being like.
Well, it's just something about Zoom meetings in general are like so depersonalizing.
I don't know if it's just me. Yeah, I kept wondering that. Is this me?
I think it's body language. I think it's a lack of human interaction. Like you hear their voice, you can see their face, but like you're not picking up the vibes.
Yeah. I remember like went over like one Zoom. I started looking at my phone and playing. I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing
like
something.
I'm interviewing you, and I just
was like,
checked
oh my
my
God.
phone.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
and luckily
I've done it a few times because it's force of habit as well. But I remember
doing it like I'm bored. Like I don't want to hear what you're gonna say, but
right,
because it was like what I said, the same stuff. It's like, all right, yeah, here you go, you got a book now, cool. But anyway, the future, I keep thinking like, what's after podcasting? What's gonna be the new form of media?
Right. I wouldn't say it's getting stagnant, but it's probably not getting as popular as it was during the COVID era. Like
I think it's very saturated.
Podcasting has like reached its all-time peak during COVID, like near the end of COVID, and then as you just said, it's saturated.
Yeah, everybody has a podcast.
3 years ago, I would like go to my Spotify or whatever podcast, Stitcher, whatever app you're using. You look up like podcasts with a keyword. Like for me, example is entomology.
Sure.
Very niche, right? But you'd think there'd probably be a podcast or two, and that's how it was. There was like one podcast, two podcasts. I'll plug one that I love, Arthropod. Amazing podcast. Totally focused on like entomology, current research. They bring on entomologists, students, industry professionals, researchers, whatever. And it's great. It's focused, and I really like it. It keeps me up to date on like academia. And I've even actually reached out to one of them and like got a paper published because of them.
Let's go.
Kind of a thing. So like it has been inspirational, guiding. It's good to see like people that have my profession doing their profession and talking about it.
Sure.
But on the other regard now, if I were to, I'll even just do it on air. Like I will go onto Spotify and type in entomology or insect. Maybe that's probably a better keyword, more ubiquitous word, I think. But I bet you the number of podcasts that come up are going to be 20, 30 podcasts, right? Like it's going to be significantly more than
I agree with that.
what I was saying before. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that all have posted within the last week, and have over a couple thousands of views on their last video. Like, I wouldn't say that's like crazy popular, but it's relevant at least. Like, people are listening. There's an audience.
Community, yeah.
You've got a community. You've got an audience, and like, so the point there is like, it's agreeing with you. The saturation is there, like, and not to like downplay what you do, but like, there's a lot of people that have copied this. Like,
yeah, that's why I've started like kind of backing off a little bit, just because it's like it's out. Everyone, like I said, everyone has a podcast.
And at first, you started a little bit more focused.
Yeah, I'm into it. I want it. Like what we were talking about earlier in the one we just did or whatever. It's like, oh, I want to be good at it. I want to do what I can. I want to make it the best it can be.
But then you found, like, I guess I'm paraphrasing what you just said, but you found that you have more fun when it's fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting, kind of harping on something I talked about earlier, is like if you do a thing that you enjoy for a hobby and it feels like it becomes a job, or you have expectations, like your weekly quota, or feeling like you need to listen to podcasts just to stay up to date on like what's being done, what's new, what's interesting, or like emailing with people, finding people, planning your next month or two of like talks, and like maybe getting a basic idea of what this person, like Googling them, kind of a thing, like footwork that's required to do anything like this, right?
Of course.
But now it's at that point, it might have felt, and I'm speaking for you, it might have felt like a job.
It was. You had to treat
Especially
it like a job.
If you'd alluded to it, that you were getting like ad sponsors for a little bit.
Yeah.
So you, whether it be a lot or a little money, you were making something from it. You were seeing a profit from your effort.
My effort came off.
And now it feels more like a job than ever. I assume that's how you felt.
Exactly, 100%. Because it's just like, oh, man, like I was not looking forward to doing the podcast with X person. Just because like, here we go again.
And as you fell out of that like passion from consistency in the view or the people you interviewed, or maybe just not enjoying the topics that you like generally talked about.
Like I said, like if I wasn't enjoying it, there's nobody else gonna be enjoying it.
But you kept doing it.
Yeah,
and
you pushed through.
Done it for 4 years now, and like have found that you prefer different things. So I guess my question is, do you think you will go back to doing those types of interviews, like, or more sporadically? Are you gonna focus on having friends on, or maybe like more consistently, like individual, or like do you have something planned out with someone, like to make it more like kind of talk showy, like this is our topic this week and we're gonna go all over the place, but this is the main topic, or like any ideas like that, or just for fun, like we're doing right now, and a buddy comes to visit and you're like, hey, you want to sit down and podcast for 2 hours and get wasted?
So this is the idea I had, because I was like, I mean, I'll say it on here, but I haven't got it completely worked out yet. But I don't know how I would do it is a problem. I would need more people on my team to help me out.
Okay.
But I thought it would be really cool to keep like what we're doing now. Like, all right, if friends want to come over and just shoot the shit and have a few drinks and just, you want to bring up world events or what have you been doing in your life? Let's just talk and, ask some deep cuts here and there. But anyway, the main thing was like, all right, what is nobody else doing? And this is what I don't know how I would make it work. But if we could use the power of AI and I could create like Napoleon versus George Washington, and I could be a mediator and somehow have like them come on and be like, what's your views on war? What is your strategies? And like somehow make it to, if I could give like, this is what part I don't know how I would do it, but I feel like if I could give or code something to where George Washington's character has access to like every speech that was ever done, every article written, every document as far as constitutions, every war that was, or articles on war, like anything it could ever need to learn. Could I do that and do the same thing for Napoleon? Like, let's debate.
Let's have an AI generated debate by these people for like an example of a topic, or to give an idea of something I've done with my old roommate. We did it like last year when I lived with him. We'd get fucked up, absolutely toasted. 3 a.m, are both like, dude, I'm significantly intoxicated. We'd always want to go on walks, but I'm like, dude, it's 3 a.m. that's sketchy. We're gonna get arrested if we go on a walk.
Valid.
Like, let's stay inside and do something. He's like, well, what do we want to do? I'm like, we'd play video game. That'll be fun for about 30 minutes, and then whatever. I'll just get pissed off. But so thing we like, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to ever have done this, but a thing we started doing, I started getting into AI a little bit and just fiddling with it, seeing some of the things like ChatGPT could do, and like as many people like my age or age are like experiencing, like it's pretty helpful.
Sure.
And can be fun if you think about it in a particular way. So we were, as I said, like significantly intoxicated. And I had a great idea. I was sitting on my computer. He came in the room and bugged me. And I was like, dude, I'm sitting on AI right now and I'm just trying to like figure out something for like a paper or like something like that. I'm like, but you and I are always joking around about like writing a script for a movie or like something like that. I'm like, let's ask AI to write a little tiny like 1-2 page script, like a 3-minute script or like an intro to a new show, a pilot theme or something like that. Let's give it a prompt. So for example, 2 aliens come to Earth, and instead of trying to like abduct anyone, they try to assimilate into like culture, but aren't able to like pick up on social cues or sarcasm or anything.
Okay.
AI spit me out a dialogue between these 2 aliens and the president of the United States. I want it to be Trump. Use Trump words in dialogue that he would use. And so it spit out this like script, and then we would assign like who's going to read it and voice act it. And we would then like read it so we get an idea of like the idea and theme, and then go through the script like with the voice acting, like, and we both loved like pretending to voice act. That's like one of my hidden passions is voice acting. I always wanted to be a voice actor. So it touches on that a bit, but we would just go through the like skit and then like add more to it. We're like, okay, ChatGPT, let's add the next scene where this happens. And the Russian leader invites the aliens over, but then takes them golfing or whatever it may be. You can literally throw in any kind of scenario or just some BS prompt, you know? And we just had fun with it. It wasn't being recorded. It was just me and him, and we were just voice acting, drunk, all insecurities gone out the window. And we're buds, best buds. I've known him since my undergrad. Like, probably one of my best friends that I've ever had. And like, so like feeling that comfortable with the person makes like that stuff easier. But it's also, it's really fun once you start laughing, let the inhibitions go away and just get into it. Put on your worst Trump voice, put on your worst Biden voice or whatever it may be for the script there, and like go for it. So like for a while, him and I were like, let's make a podcast where this is what we do. Just voice act and put crazy things into AI and like just either voice act it or like read it out. Like tell me a story about a Southern belle who does this thing, but tell it to me in a Canadian accent. And it'll write it out as like you were Canadian or from Wisconsin, eh? Don't you know? Oh, when I was a young lad, I would read it and then he would like add to it and then read the next part. And it was just like fun to like free flow, create these like stories that meant nothing, but like just keep stemming from like pop culture or like just things that are in our brain or like thoughts we've had or a voice we wanted to try because we both play D&D and voice act a lot. Like we watch a lot of TV, movies, and like just trying to joke it out is always funny to us. Like, tell me a story in the voice of Krunk from Emperor's New Groove, right? You know, like it's hard to do as well, but it's also it's freaking hilarious. Even if it's not funny, even if the content is like bad, it's like not a good story. The joke doesn't hit. It's just fun and funny to do. So like, I guess my like point to that story was like, one, your AI ideas has been something I've thought about. Like, because I've also been like for a long time wanting to like make a podcast, and it's like, what would my theme be? And I hate the idea of a theme because it's good because it gives you a constant, a variable that's always constant, which is consistent and good for consistency. That I just said that word like 3 times, but like it puts you in a hole to get out of. You have to change everything. Now your audience are curated to a particular thing. You say it's an entomology podcast. If they started talking about beer, for example, sure, there's probably some people in the audience that are like, yeah, cool, this is great. I'd love to hear a discussion on beer. But like, if it's not entomology related, 99% of like the audience is like, what the hell is this episode? Like, this is so off base from what I know. And now you've lost them, and not completely, right? They'll probably still listen to your next ones and until you've completely lost them. But like, the point there is like, by not having an overarching theme or a narrative that you always follow. So for example, success might have been your earlier like alma mater in a sense, like for a single word, like it was your, like you were like, I'm going to focus on this, and that's like what we're going to focus on, and the people I'm going to have are curated to that. But you had personal growth and learned that like you enjoyed more free flow and dialogue and bullshit and conspiracy, anything, right? Like, so it like, by being nestled into that like niche there with success, you like kind of created your own hell, right? Like we create our own hells in life for everything we do, but like it became a chore, it became homework and something you weren't very into, and then it lost its like passion in a sense, maybe.
I agree.
So now do you find like as you're doing more like of these style like free flow dialogues, and I'm sure you haven't been like interviewed, I guess, as extensively. I'm hitting you now, but do you like? I guess I'm more curious. I find like the podcasting thing like very intriguing, like how it's done and how grassroots it can be, like in a sense, like we're literally in your kitchen with equipment that you bought online, probably less than $1,000 worth of equipment total sitting here. You've not been formally trained in like the arts of syncing video and like you've learned all of these things like YouTube through the process. University. Like so like it intrigues me in a way, and like and seeing the thought and how it develops and growing is great. So do you, I guess you had said that that's something you're into. Do you have any plans for the AI thing, or like maybe a show, or like something planned? I guess
the first plan is to look. I've never have a background in coding, never had it. I've done a little bit of Python, but that would be like.
Don't worry, I've done a little R, and that's even more nerdy. So,
but anyway, but that would be the plan. It was like, how do I make 2 AI characters come to life and be able to have them sitting here and here and be able to hear the dialogue coming out of my mouth and be able to answer it in real time. You know, that would be it's a challenge.
So you're thinking like, for example, like have 2 AI guests in a sense, and then you either interviewing them or engaging in some form of dialogue conversation with them. Using AI, like you are writing your questions or responses to them into the AI, and then it generates a response, or like it may be a little pre-made, because that might be a little bit that content could be hard to do like live in a sense. So like having it more like predetermined could.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm at with that part. Just because,
like, would you do scripted, or would you 100% free flow?
Well, I thought for the first part it would have to be scripted, just because to get all the kinks worked out, all the bugs and stuff, and like and put something out there to ask people who might listen. Like,
your
hey, what do you want to hear?
Episode per se.
Yeah, be like, all right, how's this going to work? Is everything working perfectly fine? Then, if you could get it to where hey, Jason's here interviewing y'all too, and you just answer something randomly that's not pre-scripted, that it knows how to listen to you in real time and be like, well, what do you think about modern cyber warfare compared to when you were
or like pull up any current event, whatever it may be,
like, what's your thoughts
and
on
make
that?
some AI generated dialogue that's
give me something
funny and lighthearted and not too serious, but still touches on like humanality in a sense. And like I think that sounds like a great idea. I don't know of any podcasts. I'm sure there's probably we've thought about it. And what's rule like 54 or 459 of the internet? If you thought about it, there's a porn of it.
I've never heard that before.
It's like rule 51 or something of the. It's a rule of the internet that if it's been thought of, there's porn for it, right? But I take that to mean more than just that. Like, I think what it's really trying to say is it's very difficult to have original thoughts.
That's a good. I've had that thought
is
before.
Kind of what that I think is really trying to entail. Like, sure, it's a joke on porn and how there's so many subcategories of it. Like, we can literally look at it for what that statement's saying. But I think if we take a step back and look at what it's actually trying to say, it's through the internet, through like the interconnectedness of humanity, through like the fact that like I could do something and post it online and people around the world, time zones away from me, a day ahead of me, know what happened. It's there and it's always there. And living in this like day and age, like, and interconnectedness can like make us dissociated a little bit from like how easy information is, or how like quickly things spread or ideas spread. Like, and that's kind of why like the thought is like there's no original idea anymore.
Right.
Like they're all just a spin-off of some original idea. And that's where I was going with that. It's all just some spin-off. But if you can add a flair, your spin-off, your novel unit to the show or whatever it may be, and whether it starts for fun and just to have a fun Saturday night every other week or something you enjoy doing, like let's make scripts and just joke about it. And you know, like whether that develops into like actually becoming a voice actor one day or just having fun is what it's like I think we talked about that the very second we started. It's like that's the point of life.
Valid.
And like to enjoy the things you do, find value and meaning, whether it be arbitrary meaning, just personal happiness, or giving other people in the world like a sense of purpose or a place to go when they're bored or in their car, or just like to make a connection to someone, I think. And I think you seem to have it as well, like this sense of like greater purpose. Like you want a little bit more for yourself, which is, it seems like why you may have put yourself out there on the podcast. Like,
Got to.
It's like, I can't get anywhere in life if I don't try to do a thing.
You're saying it. You're preaching it.
And like, it could just be a hobby, like a podcast. It could pop off and I could be the next Joe Rogan, but you'll never know until you try and do the thing. And it's easier to do the thing if you like it. And finding out that there's like, you had tried it away and like didn't enjoy it. It was successful, but it like wasn't you. But then like now, like not giving up on the thing. You're like, I've doing this for a while. I enjoy the act of like interviewing people and engaging like this. Sure, some conversations are boring, but for the most part, they're good. And I want to keep doing it, but I want to change it. And I think that's something a lot of people can't accept in their life, is change or being able to adapt to a thing.
Valid.
Like I'm sure the thought ran to you, like if I can't do it the way I've been doing it, I've just got to stop it. I got to quit. I'm done. I'm not made to do this, or like I'm not bringing in money. I'm not like meant to do this. But like that's if one person listens to it
and get something out of it,
then you've impacted one person's life. And sure, there's 7 billion people in this world, and it'd be great to touch all of them. But that's physically impossible, right?
Valid.
Like, and I think just by changing one person's life in the slightest can give another person value in their life, even if it's not monetary or anything like that. Like that's one of the things I love about coaching, is I can significantly impact someone's life without doing much. Just being me, listening to them, and giving a couple of shits.
You're spitting right now, dude.
Hey, wisdom.
Wisdom.
I'm a doctor now, you know. I've got to speak.
That was very well said.
But yeah, no, that kind of covers like what I wanted to ask you about the podcast. Sorry, that was kind of impromptu. Like when we started this, I didn't write it down, but it like came to me, and I was like, I'm curious of the history and like before direction and some fun things you've done, because I'll be truthful, I haven't gone through and listened to your anthology.
I don't expect you to.
I honestly haven't even listened to my own episode.
I never listened to my own either.
Heard about 5 minutes of it and hated. I think I was telling you earlier, hated my voice and was like, I can't listen to this.
That's why I was like, that sounds okay. Sounds okay. All right, good. Throw it out there.
Like if it's bad or there's a problem somewhere, someone will comment and I can fix it. Like
yeah. Like I told you, like I hated hearing my own voice in the beginning and stuff, and like so I stopped. Like if I want to do this, like here, all right, the audio. Few seconds. All right, that sounds perfect. Out there.
Little more forward, but I think since we're still kind of like slightly on the topic, if like that is a goal or a desire of yours, like feel free to have me on the show. I guess I could have said this off camera, but like I would love to like engage in that AI thing, or
that'd be perfect.
Dick around and just throw in different things into AI. Maybe one day it's a script. Maybe one day it's like engaging in some niche thing that happened with Vogue or the Emmys, or like, and just talking with AI and then reading it out, or like then engaging in a conversation from there. And like,
I mean, that could be where it starts at. Like if you're with your entomology background, like, all right, let's get some kind of AI thing going, and then you two debate each other.
on
some
like
fashion.
insects or so, or like
Or,
or
I
like
don't know.
anything in general. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
or have a debate on what's a crazy silly thing.
The moon landing.
The moon landing. Have a debate about this. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be like based on peer-reviewed studies or something, but like, let's just have a debate about it. You have to take a pro stance and you have to take a con stance. And that's how most debates work. You're assigned a stance. It's not how you actually view it. It's you are assigned a thing. I did one debate at a conference for entomology. We ended up winning the topic, but it's weird to be assigned a view. Because you obviously have your own biases, but now you need to be like, okay, now I need to view like in this other way, or maybe you do or don't agree with it. But either way, that could be like a fun.
That would be fun. Like stuff like that. Like it's new. It's interesting. We're doing something different than nobody else is doing.
So would you make a separate podcast, or would you just roll it over and like, guys, like I will still be doing like interviews with people, but like we're gonna shift the narrative a little bit.
That's another thing that I have trouble wondering is that people just want to go to one spot to get their thing, or do they actually want to have like, all right, here's the new show. They go to that just for that, or should everything be in one spot? I don't know.
Like, and I would think there'd almost be a fear too if you're like make a new thing, like you could lose the audience that you have because they're not like. I hate to say it, it's not laziness, but like we're all human, and like sometimes just clicking on that extra link and being like. Do I really want to like, you know, so it's like if it's just in the feed as the next episode and like, you know what, we're trying something new. Let us please give us some responses or some reviews of like, wow, what did you think of it? Did you enjoy the content or whatnot? But keeping it on the same channel and then, you know, going for it. Sorry, I don't mean to like harp or like dig into like your podcasting or anything, but has anyone ever like asked you like explicitly about it? Have you ever gotten to like indulge or talk about like some behind the scenes a little bit?
No, very, what's the word am I looking for? Very
rarely, maybe, or
no, very just a couple topics. Like
it's not the topic at hand.
How'd you get started? Like that's very like
some more icebreaker than anything.
That's what I was trying to say. Like
more
stuff like that. Like you know,
stimulating a conversation and a flow of narrative.
Why'd you do it? All right. Then like, was it like, well, how do you actually make it? I mean, what are your thoughts? And like what's actually
how'd you get
deeper?
started doing this?
Yeah,
like,
it was more stuff like that rather than just like, well, you know, where do you see it going in 5 years?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, sorry for interviewing you, and
you don't have to be. You don't have to apologize at all, man. That was fun. That was cool. I didn't even take it as an interview. I just thought we were just talking.
No, it was part one was more about me and life and thoughts, and part two has now been more about the podcast and yourself and whatnot.
Well, let's take this home and do how we ended it last time. We'll do some cards.
Some cardies, end on a light note.
Yeah. Like, we'll just pull out, 10 cards or something and answer them, like, not go in full detail.
Right. If it's lame, I'm not talking. I'm not going to say the question. No.
Okay.
There were ones before, like, about superheroes, and I am a nerd, but I'm not a superhero nerd.
All right. So let's just say, like, one sentence or something, but let's not go into any further into it.
We'll just roll with the punches
Unless,
right now.
like, you have more to say or something. Just roll with the punches.
Roll with the punches.
Like, we'll do it like this. You pull one card, I'll pull one card.
All right. Do I read it immediately?
Sure. Put it unless you just like we can't talk about that. I don't because some of these are just like.
So do I ask it to you or do you?
What's both answer it?
We'll both answer it. All right. First question, first card here. No mulliganing on the card. This is tell everyone something that made you laugh today.
That made me laugh.
That's not on the podcast.
Today, that's not on the podcast.
That's obviously not on the card, but
yeah,
is a new amendment to the card.
Let's see. Well, I drove home today from Charlotte. Nothing really happened there, just me driving. Got to work. Work was kind of lame. Didn't really do much there. One thing did happen. Like, there's this one girl at work. She goes, "Did you bring me flowers for my birthday?" And I kind of like gave her like the what?
It's your
like
birthday?
Yeah. And she's like, and like she always says shit like that, random like that. And I kind of laughed. I was like, "Is it really your birthday?" She said it was yesterday. I was like, "Oh shit!" And I was like, smiled, and I was like, "Well, messed that one up." And but she always just like she likes to bring me food and stuff, and like that was her way of just like picking and having fun with me.
Right,
but I chuckled at
like nicely telling you missed a life event of mine, but I don't expect you to have it in your calendar.
Right.
But let's make light heart of it in a way.
I
Yeah.
was like, all right, cool.
That's
Then we made out.
At work.
Yeah.
Nice. I try to avoid, sexual intercourse or even base one at work, but sometimes it can be tough. All right, for me, oh shit, I woke up hungover from a wedding yesterday.
Okay.
So the beginning portion of my day was trying to recollect the day before. Had I fucked up? Yeah, there's always that like blackout moment where you're like, did I say something to someone that pissed them off? I'm like, no. I was good last night. I didn't piss anyone off. So I went through all of that and thought about it some more. And I was like, okay, it was a good night. I'm like slightly hungover. Took a shower, got ready. And I guess the first funny thing I heard today was I had asked the one person that was rooming with me. I was like, hey, I have been told lately that like I used to be a crazy snorer, like needed like a CPAP machine, was like had apnea, crazy like. I was like, but I've been told that like recently I've kind of stopped that. But I know when I'm drunk I do. And I was like, reports? Like I know I went to bed before you. I passed the fuck out. I was like, did I snore? And they were like, you were like a lawnmower. They were like, you were a decibel
Chainsaw,
that was
yes.
like, they're like, I didn't think you were breathing at points. And like, I don't know why, but this like, it made me, I laughed at it. I thought it was hilarious. They're like, it didn't stop me from sleeping. They're like, I passed the hell out. I was so drunk and tired, like,
Sure.
and puking. But like I don't know. I think like, I thought that was kind of funny. And I know for them,
agree.
it probably wasn't, but like, I did find that quite comical. There was another thing that came to mind, but I was like, that's a little personal and I won't share that here, but.
One other thing that came to my mind, like right before I left, my buddy's kid, he's like 3 or 4 years old, and he goes, "Hey Chris, how far do you live from us?" And I was like, "I don't know, like 2.5 hours." And he goes, "Yeah," and I said, "Like why?" And he goes, "Are you gonna ride a pickle home?"
A pickle?
Yeah, and then he said he was eating breakfast, and I don't know if he was eating a pickle or what, but he goes, "Are you gonna ride a pickle home?" And I looked at my buddy, and I was like, "Am I missing something?"
Like, is this a lingo?
Yeah,
I'm not
and
like.
he looked at me, he's like, I don't know.
I thought I knew what the kids are saying, but is this a new
And
one?
he goes, and I went, nah, just drive my truck home, I guess. And he goes, just went back to eating.
Not even phased. Like, didn't
Dude, I was like,
you're like, did he mean to say pickle?
I was just like, I looked at my buddy, he's like,
and then you like think about like the innocence of children and like their naive brains, and they'll just say anything unfiltered, and you're like, where? Where did? There's no pickles on the table.
I was like, what is going on?
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Like,
I was like, is he thinking about he likes pickles? Man?
that's got to be slang, right? That's got to be like
He's
the
like
next
3 or
word
4,
that
and
we
I
don't.
don't know, dude. But I was like, right, a pickle?
Well, 3 or 4 is probably not slang. Then it's just the word on their brain for that day, right?
Like, maybe you're a pickle on a TV show he's watching. I don't know. But anyway.
I got another thing. It's not from
Okay.
today, but it was this week, so I think I'll count it. I went out with a friend for like a graduation dinner, and they brought their son with them. They're like a little younger, like 10 or 12 or something like that. And I'd never met them before, so it was interesting to like just meet them, and like it's always I love kids, I do, but I don't want my own like biological children, at least. Like I would be fine being like a stepdad or a parent, but I don't actually have a desire for my own kids.
Okay.
Neither here nor there. I do enjoy kids, and especially when they're older and like 10 to like 18 and have thought and feelings and emotions, and like you can just see the cogs working and like the brain forming, and like they're just absorbing so much, and the thoughts they have are 9 times out of 10 always out of pocket. And I can't remember what exactly we were talking about. I think it was something entomology related, because I was like, you're not gonna believe me, but I'm a doctor. And they're like, no, you're not. I'm like, yes, I am. I know I look young, but I'm a doctor. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, what do you like? They're like a doctor, or like, and then I explained it to them. Like, I study insects, and like went into it a little bit. And then they started quizzing me on insect stuff. Little kid stuff, like, what is that butterfly that has spots on it? They only know one butterfly. It's the monarch, like. So I'm like answering questions like that. And then they asked me a question like, what is a beetle named after a Disney movie? Not named after, but shares a name with a Disney movie.
Okay.
Any guesses there? I guess to the audience as well. Put them down below.
Put
Put in the comments, like, subscribe, and
That's how you do it. No idea.
Think
Nothing's
90s Disney movie. It's animated.
Ants? No. Was that Disney?
That's too literal.
Okay.
Too literal. Think it's a beetle.
A beetle.
It's a large beetle, and it is shares a name with like other things that are considered large, strong, heroic in a way. I'll give you one more hint. Greek gods.
Zeus?
You're close. Now think of a Disney
Hercules.
movie. Okay. Now can you put the two together? Hercules and what insect? Any idea? Thoughts? They're actually native to this area as well. There's a species that are. It's a large beetle.
Hercules.
I know this is
Large
riveting
beetle.
content for everyone listening, but the Hercules beetle.
Hercules beetle.
Hercules beetle, yeah, it's like one of the largest beetles. Like almost all of them in that grouping are some of the largest
Everyone put that
insects,
together.
like in general. And one, like I was amazed that the kid, like, was able to come up with like such a. I wouldn't say like intelligent, but that was a really smart question to like tie in like pop culture and an insect and like relate it to like the title. And I was like, oh, I told him this isn't the funny part. We're coming to that as the build up. I'm sorry. But I was like, that was a really good question. I actually was a part of like the entomology Jeopardy team, which is how I phrased it to him. It was actually the entomology games is what we call it. It's something we do at the one annual conference. It's really, really big. And students partake in it, and they just answer like entomological trivia, whether it be like ranging from pop culture to insect management to like genetics to people, like all kinds of topics. It's fucking hard. It's like Jeopardy, but all of it is insect related in some way, shape, or form. And I have participated in it. And I hated it. I'm a smart individual and I love facts, but like I can't think like that. Regardless, I'd done it, and I submit questions to like the group that like makes questions and like tries to keep things like up to date and current or like just new and different. And I told him like at dinner, I was like, that was a very good question. Like not only was it answerable, like there's a clear answer, Hercules beetle. Like that's a clear association that like someone that is like insect related could probably make like logically. But I was like, that's a really good idea. I'm going to submit that as a question to the entomology games. And I said it that way. And they're like, insect Jeopardy? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, my question can be on Jeopardy? And I was like, oh, yeah, it can. And like just that like experience of him thinking like I was talking about actual Jeopardy and that his question could possibly be on a new episode. He was so hype. And it like, it had a moment for me that reminded me of my youth as well. So it was touching, but it also like made me laugh at like the naivety of being a child, how easily you can be like wooed, but also the intelligence, creativity, like, oh.
They got hyped too.
Yeah. But it did remind me of like a moment in my life. I was really, really into art.
Hey.
I was really, really into art and drawing, and I loved Star Wars. So I was drawing like model Star Wars spaceships, and they were terrible. I sucked at art. But my dad told me, he's like, I'm going to send these into George Lucas for the next movie.
Nice.
I believed him.
I can't wait.
It was one of the biggest letdowns of my life when I realized that he did not actually know George Lucas. But it also was like one of those things in life that like the naivety of children. And like that's kind of like the whole thing. It like made me laugh because of like the naivety of it all. So like I digress. That was a long story for like a simple joke.
That's
but
funny.
Your turn, man.
Send these to George Lucas.
Send these to George Lucas. He'll care.
Okay. What's the weirdest sound you can make with any body part?
Do I have to make it, or do I just have to talk about it?
I guess your choice. Depending on if you want to do it or not.
Because a male, most of us can make our like nuts clap, like against our legs or something, and that's a really weird noise. And I'm not gonna do that. But I think that's. I can't think of any other noise that I can make that's like excessively unique or like.
Yeah, I was like Weirdest?
funny. Like I can make my armpit fart and I
Yeah,
can whistle really
that was
well,
my
but
first
like
thing.
those aren't weird
Can you
noises.
do the whistle like this?
I can't do like
can't
the
do that.
loud whistle. I've always wanted to and have tried.
Fiona can. And when
Oh,
she-
I've heard it.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
when
loud.
She did it the
It's-
first time. I was like, oh, didn't know anyone could do that.
So a slightly lame question. I think it's kind of going for like more bodily functions kind of a thing. Like,
the weirdest sound you can make.
I wouldn't say it's a weird noise, but I can make like the water drop noise with my mouth. Like, hold on.
Hey.
Like,
Okay.
yeah.
I haven't heard that one before.
And it looks like I'm flicking my mouth to make the
Yeah.
noise, but actually the flick doesn't do anything. It's like when you're snapping, like holding your fingers together doesn't actually do the noise. Like the noise isn't generated here. It's generated when you click your finger against the palm of your hand. That's where the noise comes from. You just pushing the pressure here facilitates the action that generates the noise, right? So I just think of like that movement, like the doing the flick is what allows like the lips and mouth to make the contour that makes that noise. And it's not a funny noise, I guess, but like it's unique.
Yeah,
So
so.
we'll end that question there. That's
Okay, good.
You got an easy one. You do or do not have to answer this one.
Okay.
No, we're gonna pass. I don't want to get into that. Who is your doppelganger? I guess the better question is, do you have a doppelganger? Have you ever met a doppelganger? Or like,
I've been told I
been
have
told
one.
you have one. Yeah.
Just recently, I had one. Apparently, one in Norfolk.
Famous person or just a normal human being?
Apparently, this one's a normal human being. But in college, I used to get what's his name? He was in Batman.
Heath Ledger?
No, not Christian Bale or Heath Ledger. He was like almost was going to be Robin. He was in 10 Things I Hate About You.
Again, we're touching on a section of the world and news and things I don't know much about. I suck with names.
50-50. He was with Seth Rogen in that movie.
Even look him up, to be honest.
That's
Even
what I was
like
about
know
to
who you're
look-
talking
I was
about.
about
I'm
to
like
look
I
for
don't
his
even
name.
like know like.
It starts with a J. Batman. Let's see. All right, let's do this. 10 things. Sorry, folks, we're looking it up.
I'm worse than you. You're looking it up. I'm like sending a text. I'm like, I know I
Joseph
shouldn't,
Gordon-Levitt.
but- Oh,
I've been told that.
one of those individuals with 3 names.
I was told that in college a lot.
Hold on. Let me. I hold on.
I never.
What'd you
saw
say
it.
again?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Gordon Levitt. All right. Huh.
Oh, and
You know, I make that noise because like the first image I see here is this. And for those online, I just Googled his name and like it's the literally first image on Google. So it's like almost like a profile to describe it. He's like hardly smiling, more of like a sneer kind of a face he's making. He's got squinty eyes and but I see that. Like if you had
and my buddy sent this one this week too.
like if he shaved his head bald and gained 30 pounds of muscle, I could see that. You guys are similar age too. I wonder how tall he is. 5'9".
Oh, he's a little taller. Okay, and then my buddy told me, here you can see it. The guy kind of looks like Chris. It's a guy who sings the Pokemon song.
I didn't know that's what the guy that sung the Pokemon song. Like, hold on, I want to like. Can I click on that? Do you mind? Here, I scrolled to the fucking top. I don't use iPhones. I'm an Android user, and I fuck everything up.
I guess. That's awesome. Hold on.
I'm the worst. Like, just click the video and put it like on mute so I can like see them for a second more than
We probably could play a few seconds of it before.
detectors go off.
Yeah,
and
it's like
cancel
YouTube
us,
automatically
yeah.
mute it. Get a little, okay.
And they say you look like them.
Like the guy singing right there. He's like, this guy.
I don't see that one, but Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I
kinda
do
see
see.
it?
I do
Okay.
see that one. I do see the resemblance there. I I don't think I have a doppelganger. I don't. I've had people tell me that like, oh my god, I just met someone that like looks so much like you, and they may send me a picture, and I'm like, that looks nothing like me, kind of a thing. I don't know. I've never been told like someone. Oh, you know what? At the gym 2 years ago, it was when that who's that serial killer that the guy from American Horror Stories played Gacy.
John Wayne Gacy?
No, was that the show that came out like last year or the year before?
Dahmer?
Dahmer. I had someone tell me that I looked like the actor, whatever his name is, Pete, or he's from like American Horror Stories and whatnot.
Okay.
So, but they were like, you look like him, but wearing, because I was wearing like Dahmer glasses. That's what I had for the longest time, and I didn't use contacts. So I was wearing the Dahmer glasses, had like slightly curly hair, and they're like at the gym, they're like, you look like the actor that plays Dahmer. And I was like, I don't know if I should be offended by you saying I look like a serial killer, or like thankful that you're saying I like look like an actor. I was like, I'm gonna say thanks and move forward with that. So that would be mine. I'm blanking on their name, but here, I'll just Google it real quick.
I would not know their name at all. I watched the show. Pretty good.
Stories.
I wanna be the very best.
Why does he not pop up at the top? Oh, I put stories, not story. That's the anthology. Sorry. Too much content now. It's Evan Peters. I was told that I looked like the serial killer version of Evan Peters.
I don't know.
I did not see it.
I don't see it.
I think it was just the glasses, but I digress. I don't like being compared to that.
I concur.
For a while, I was like, that was like a debatably rude thing to tell someone. I think I would have kept that to myself. But thanks. Anyway.
Okay.
That's
I don't see it, but all right.
Yeah.
Did you pull that one? Or?
I pulled that one.
Okay.
Your pull.
What text, email, shorthand drives you craziest?
K.
That's a good one.
K.
That's a real good one.
The passive aggression in the text there is always so. You're like, are you mad at what I just sent you? Are you mad at like life, or like?
How do I respond to that?
Are you just like not a texter, and like, how do I respond? Do I respond to that? Do I acknowledge it? Like, K. K. Like, you never tell someone that in public. K.
Okay. Just walk away.
K. And walk, like,
yeah.
So then, like, text it, like, makes no sense. It's like, you're clearly trying to send me a message beyond the one letter that you sent me. That always has pissed me off. Always has pissed me off. Like, or gets me going, at least. I'm like, if I wasn't mad, now I'm mad. Or self-conscious, like, thinking I'm in trouble. Or if it's, like, a significant other or something, you're like, oh, fuck. They sent K.
Yeah,
what did I do?
Yeah, we're done. Like, oh my god.
Like,
I pissed her off.
I didn't know I did something. Like, fuck me.
I think for me, it's the ROF, rolling on the floor, laughing or whatever.
But
it
like
was.
sending that instead of like,
just like give me an LOL.
Yeah.
It's like, are you really that?
You don't need to over
Yeah,
exaggerate
I used to be
it.
like, shut up.
Like,
There's
it
no
was
way.
really that funny. Like, I've never made someone do
I
that
was like,
before. Like, do you want the last of this here?
Sure.
Finish off the whiskey with me.
That's
a.
But yeah, I remember it's like that wasn't that fun. I didn't even laugh that hard, but okay.
Like I wasn't even making a joke.
I was kind of like,
it's like, did you read my text? I know, I agree.
Yeah, ROF LMA rolling on the floor.
LOL usually kind of like irritates me a little bit too,
Really?
and it's not because I don't find like it like to have meaning per se. I know that could just be in someone's like texting language. That's just how they text. Like some people might do like traditional emojis like versus normal emojis, and that's just the way they texted and have not changed it. Or some people might use like a lot more like what do they call it? Like LOL, an acronym. Like some people might like send short, quick messages, like 5 in a row that are all like about the same thing, but you just got bombarded with 5 messages. Like that's another like.
Just put it in one message.
Put it in fucking one message. Like, it's all one thought. Keep
Stop
it.
pressing enter.
But like, yeah, no, like, I don't know. There's just certain things about like texting language that either like piss you off, or you either do it or like acknowledge that it's like just a thing. Like, and it's like, I think it's also a thing like with like age gaps a little bit too. Like people don't. So this is something scientists thought when like telephones became a thing. They thought that people were gonna lose like interaction skills and like body language and communication because you don't get that on the phone. You only get tone of voice and like what I'm saying to you, cadence and whatnot. But what they learned was that it was actually a very interesting like study on like as time went on, that people learned how to communicate with passion through that thing. So like via phone call, you can have a very passionate conversation with a person, right? It's not, it doesn't feel almost always like ever like scripted or like weird. And similar to like texting, you can have a very passionate conversation with the person texting, but it took time for society to develop a language and a way to interact that conveyed that meaning. Because when texting first came out, it was T9. This is being quick. That's where like the fuck, what's the word I just said? LOLs, ROFL.
Acronym?
Yeah, acronym. That's where they came from. It was a way of being quick, convenient, and like conveying meaning, but there wasn't emotional meaning. And through like the decades, we've been able to convey emotional meaning with texting and stuff. So I think that's like interesting. One, that we like have words or things that someone can say still with texting. That's like, man, that pisses me off. K, like, because it's charged. It's emotionally charged. You sent that one letter to convey a thing.
Yes.
Like there's a deeper meaning with that.
Yes.
And like that's the thing with like languages and like technologies. They're going to develop and take on personality, even though it's seems like distant and non-personal, but they take on that characteristic. And like I think that's interesting to like one document and think about. But like in that question context, like K. I don't think I've ever said that to a single person, K. I've never, ever said that in my life. The passive aggressiveness of K.
Because you just know. Yeah, you just said it's very passive aggressive. You just know you're trying to be an asshole.
It's literally like, okay, either you're pissed at me or you are like just not in the fucking mood right now. And like the Occam's razor, you're mad at me.
Just
or
don't
like
respond.
I'm so bad. I'm like a almost constant responder. Like I can't like help myself.
Well, I'd rather like have no response instead of just K.
Yeah, right. Like at least I end.
It's like I get, especially if you don't always speak like that. You ever really use K. Like, oh, I hate you.
That's like
Anyway.
Yeah, that's weird.
Moving on.
All right. This is a fun one.
Okay.
What advice would you give your 13-year-old self? It's tough. It requires a lot of like introspection there. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about it, but
go for it.
Go for it. You'd be simple.
Like, yeah, I mean that's pretty simple.
Like if you could write a letter to you, or like actually see yourself like
kind of what we've been talking about. Like if you like, don't let people get in your way. Don't worry about what other people think. Just if you really want to do something, and if you feel it wholeheartedly that you want to do it, just go for it.
So mine here is probably completely opposite of that in a sense. And it's not because of like what you just said, but it kind of alludes to like what we were talking about earlier with fate. I am almost a little worried that if I could go back in time and talk to 13-year-old self me, that the life I have now, the experiences I've had, the life that I love and cherish would not exist. Right? Like in Back to the Future, you go back and mess with just a little thing. It can have a butterfly effect that's huge and has ramifications that you didn't see then, but accumulated towards that. And I almost, in a sense, like have that kind of fear that if I think we've all kind of thought about if we could go back and tell ourselves a thing, right? Like that's not a unique question, but like to actually engage in it, like I don't think I would say anything to myself. If the given opportunity to like interact with myself for a minute in the past when I was 13, I would walk by myself and like try to just watch and take in like that was how I was when I was 13.
Deep.
But like I don't think I would give myself any advice, almost out of fear that I would alter my life that I'm currently living and not be as happy. And sure, there's a chance I could be happier, right? Like, but all things considered, like right now where I'm at and like everything I've gone through in my life, I'm happy. And I wouldn't give myself advice. I'm sure everyone strives for more success or the relationship that failed or whatever those like major things in your life are that like eat up your brain or are there. But I don't actually think I would, given the opportunity, give myself advice. Like I would say nothing, because the choices and decisions I've made in my life built me, made me who I am. And the person that gave myself advice would not be the same person then after that advice. I would forever be changed and different, knowing this thing that either a creepy old guy or older version of me told myself, right? So I'm always in a way shaped from that moment. And it could influence the decisions I make or the life choices I do. And so, yeah, I would neglect to say anything. I would say nothing.
I like that.
I think it's a little...
Very, very, very deep, very justified, too.
Like, because like the opposite could happen. Like, sure, my life could be better, but my life could be worse. I could like give myself advice that I take the wrong way. I don't perceive, because there's this thing with advice and wisdom. You give it to someone with all the experiences you've had in your life. And that's part of wisdom, is experience, right? But when you give it to someone, they don't have those experiences. They have the option to listen to it or not listen to it or interpret it in the way they want. And if it's interpreted wrong, or I say something that's like misconstrued or sets me down a path that like was not intended, shoot for the stars, and then I end up doing a life goal that like isn't for me or something, you know, like it changes my current direction and the things I've done, and now everything's different. And maybe I don't sit here with a PhD talking to you about our life and experiences, getting drunk, having a good time, enjoying life, and talking about everything and nothing at the same time. So yeah, I would not change anything. Yeah.
Damn.
That's pretty deep.
That was real deep.
You want to end on a deep note there?
That's a good one to end on.
Yeah.
That's badass, man.
Make people think a little bit, yeah. If they got this far, listened to it, and enjoyed it, like that leave you on a little thing to think about. What would you tell yourself at 13? And
put it in the comments.
Would you go back if you could? You know.
That was cool, man.
Right on. Jellyfish.
Hamburger.
Special, please.
What's up, brother?
Dude, I was doing that all last night at the wedding. I don't know why I was doing it. It's just like drunk Jason latched onto that and thought it was hilarious, and no one else really laughed at it, but I thought it was hilarious.
It doesn't matter. You had a good time. But thanks for being here. Thanks for drinking with me. Thanks for talking with me.
Thanks for having me, man. It was a great opportunity, and
we'll do it again. Okay, bye.
Peace.